Hi, my name is Chris Melnick, and I'm a realtor in Halifax, Nova Scotia. Today I'm going to talk about value. Value is very subjective. Some people like downtown living, whereas other people prefer a more rural life and couldn't be paid to live downtown. In this video, I'm going to talk about the main attributes of a home that influence the objective value. This could be very useful if you're buying and are concerned with resale and appreciation, as well as those people who are thinking of buying land to build a home. Most of these points will seem very obvious, but I've encountered many people who just don't know. If you're concerned with resale value and appreciation, it's key to fully grasp these concepts and buy accordingly. You should still buy what's right for you, but if you're open to options, you should keep these things in mind. These are in order from most important to least important. Number 1, location. Everyone says this, but it is the most important aspect. In general, the closer you are to a city center, the more expensive the land and thus the home will be. Many people work downtown and/or want to be close to the downtown restaurants and attractions. They value that proximity. This is why just a building lot on the peninsula can cost $700,000, and an hour from the city it can be 50 grand. Since you can't just create more lots where there's already homes, it creates scarcity, and that scarcity is expensive. This value is in the land and historically will be the driving force to increase the home price in the future. Next, waterfront or waterview. In Nova Scotia, having a waterfront house is the dream, and a Waterview home is a close second. If you look at the most expensive homes that have ever sold in the province, there's a very good chance that they were waterfront. The waterfront becomes more valuable if you can swim there, dock a boat there, launch a boat, is calm for boating, has great views, and if it has a sandy beach. The cheapest waterfront land will be technically waterfront, but with basically no access. So the only real value you get from it is the view. The value is also in the land, and historically will also be a driving force to increase the home price in the future. You can't just create more waterfront. When it's gone, it's gone. Next, type of home. Since the value is in the land for the location and having a waterfront or water view, the amount of land, control over the land, and future potential plays a big part in the value. This is why a detached home will be worth the most, all other things the same. Now, in descending order, this would be followed by semi-detached homes, townhomes, condominiums in buildings, and finally a mini home and a mini home community. All other things the same, a detached home gives you the most control over the property and typically comes with the most land. If you wanted to knock the home down and rebuild it or sell it to a developer down the line, you could. A semi-detached home or townhome typically comes with much less land, and your options are more limited because you share at least one wall with a neighbor. Condos, on the other hand, just give you the right to occupy a certain amount of space in the building on that land. And you have very little control over what you want to do with your space. You can't just knock down your unit. You are tied into that condo in that configuration. You do effectively own a portion of that plot that it sits on, and that will likely appreciate, but since it would be so small, the appreciation would be much less than a detached, semi-detached, or townhome. Finally, with a mini home and a mini home community, you don't actually own the land, it's rented. So you have no control over the land and will never profit off of the sale of the land. Next, size. In this province, there are homes that are 500 square feet and some that are well over 10,000 square feet. I find the sweet spot to be about 2,000 to 3,500 square feet. Now, the desirability does depend on the types of home in the immediate area, which I'll talk about later, but 2,000 to 3,500 square feet is a decent range. Any smaller than that, and it may be considered too small for most users. And if it's bigger than 3,500 square feet, the size can just become cumbersome. And people may complain that it'll just cost more to clean, maintain, heat, and repair. Next, age, condition, and features. People like new things. And new things have the most up-to-date design, features, and likely the greatest remaining lifespan. So you don't even have to think about replacing windows or shingles anytime soon. Because of this, the newer the home, generally the more expensive it is. Even if an older home has been renovated to look identical to a new home, that renovated home will still be worth less. The components of the home that you can't see, like the foundation, wiring, plumbing, etc., will have less life in them. In the same way, a home with more features and in better condition will be worth more. There's usually a pretty big divide between homes built in the 1980s and newer versus those built before. This has to do with the materials it was made with and the layout. Next, neighborhood consistency. When buying a home in a neighborhood, that home will always be compared to its neighbors. You can build a multi-million-dollar home in a neighborhood full of rundown $200,000 homes. But when it comes to resale, the type of person that can afford the multi-million-dollar home would likely not want to be in that neighborhood. This is known as overbuilding. It's surprisingly common in Nova Scotia. If the neighborhood is full of modest 2,000 square foot homes, then it's probably safe to build another one and have a good chance at resale. But if you want to build a 4,000 square foot home, you should really look for a different neighborhood. Finally, as a bonus, these are wild cards. This is because sometimes there are just other things that can affect value that don't fit into the other categories. Now, these affect the enjoyment of the property. Common ones are noise generated from a nearby road, highway, or industrial commercial business. Then you get into some very odd ones, like power lines going through the property or an extremely steep driveway. Sometimes even a messy neighbor can be a cause, or a common red flag in construction. See my other video. These are all out of the ordinary and just make the property worse. A very discerning buyer will avoid these. In a busy market, many people may overlook these issues just to get a home, but if the market slows down, these are the homes that sit. Now, what are the takeaways in relation to Halifax or the lessons learned? First, if you're looking for appreciation, don't buy a condo in a building or a mini home in a leased community. You'll have very little control and gain much less from the land appreciation, none in the case of the mini home. This also applies if you plan to eventually upgrade to, say, a bigger detached house down the line, because in 10 years, that condo may have increased by 30% in value, whereas the home may have doubled and you're more out of reach than ever. Next, if you want to buy land to build a home, buy it either close to a city or town or by waterfront, and make sure there are similar homes nearby. Don't buy land in the middle of nowhere and build an expensive home. Some people have done this and spent over $1 million on construction only for it to be effectively worthless 30 years later, because nobody wants to live out there and heat and maintain a giant home that has nothing going for its land. New construction is about $250 a square foot right now, so a 3,000 square foot home can be around $750,000 to build. If that area can only support homes worth $300K, if you ever choose to sell, that's the type of offer you can expect. Finally, if you want the maximum appreciation, buy the property for the land. If you can find a good quality waterfront home with a big lot that's close to the city, that's it. I just wanted to give you more information about appreciation and depreciation. Generally, land is what appreciates over time. So when someone says my home went up 50% in 3 years, what they really mean is that their land went up substantially. The actual structure of a home generally depreciates over time. Just like a car, parts wear out and eventually need to be replaced. In the last few years in Nova Scotia, though, the structures have actually appreciated. So how's that possible? In short, the increases in the replacement value have exceeded the depreciation. To give an oversimplified example, let's say someone spends $500K on a home's construction 5 years ago. We'll pretend the total lifespan of the structure is 50 years. So after 5 years, the structure is only worth 90% of the original price. 10% used up. Now, if the cost of construction remained the same, that would be $450,000. On the other hand, if costs had gone up 5% in that time, and a similar home would cost $525K to build, 90% is $472,500. Now, in Nova Scotia, over the last few years, new construction costs have gone up 30 to 50%. So that $500K home now may cost $700K to build. So even if 10% is used up, the structure would still be worth $630K. And if the land was worth $150,000 when built, and is now worth $300K, that's how a $650,000 home can become a $930,000 home in 5 years. Like always, I hope you got some value from this video. My contact information is in the description. Goodbye.